Today, we're going to be talking about second language acquisition and the factors that affect it. This presentation was made by Sarah Rodriguez and Ileana Delgado. The big question that we'd like to answer in this storyboard is one second language learning factor more significant in a child's success than others? Today, we're going to be talking about factors that affect language learning. Some of these factors include motivation and attitude, age, intelligence, aptitude, learning styles, and personality.
Motivation determines a person's desire to do something, in this case, one's desire to learn. There are two distinguishing types of motivation, integrative and instrumental. Integrative is which a learner studies a language because he is interested in the people and the culture of the target language. Instrumental, a learner's goals for learning the second language are functional and useful. For example, they need the language to get a better job. And then we also have intrinsic and extrinsic motivated activities. Intrinsically motivated activities are ones for which there is no apparent reward except the activity itself. Intrinsically motivated behaviors are aimed at bringing about certain internally rewarding consequences like feelings, competence, self-determination. Extrinsically motivated behaviors accept a reward. For example, money, praise, or positive feedback.
When talking about age as a factor of second language learning, the critical period hypothesis suggests that language learning can only occur successfully within a certain age range. There's little research to support this hypothesis, however, but age still plays a role in language learning either way. The amount of time a child spends immersed by their second language is more than the amount of time adults are able to spend. Children are exposed to their second language in the classroom and all day at school, whereas adults are only exposed briefly in day-to-day transactions. Adults have jobs and expenses and other responsibilities that occupy the majority of their days, meaning they're unable to dedicate as much time to second language acquisition as children are. Adults also have firmly formed habits regarding grammatical habits and structures than children do, which may inhibit their ability to learn completely different rules of a new language. Success based on age is impacted by other factors, including motivation, aptitude, and personality. It's also based on the goal. Is the goal complete fluency? Then it's probably best to begin learning at a young age. If the goal is just to learn basic communication skills in that language and to keep their dependence on their native language, it may be best to begin learning at a later age.
So, a lot of educators have been impacted by Howard Gardner's multiple intelligences proposal, and because of common IQ tests, assess only a limited range of abilities. Now, you have some on both sides who feel an IQ intelligence quotient can or cannot tell if someone is successful in content classes, will be as successful learning a new language. Overall, it also can depend on the environment, how successful one can be, the opportunities provided to learn how they learn.
Aptitude is defined as the ability to learn something quickly. Oftentimes, somebody's success in learning something is simply dependent on whether or not they are a quick learner. This may not seem fair because this is just something a person is born with. Another natural ability is the working memory, oftentimes referred to as short-term memory ability. This means the ability to process and retain information quickly. In addition to working memory, language analytic ability and phonemic coding ability are two skills that could greatly contribute to the success of language learning. Even if a student has never heard a language before, if they are naturally able to quickly analyze the rules and structures of the language and decode the new phonemes, they are going to have a greater chance of success and a better shot at fluency.
Now, researchers have investigated individual differences in terms of learning styles. These are defined as an individual's natural, habitual, and preferred ways of absorbing, processing, and retaining new information and skills. So it's your specific choice of learning. Of the styles, we have visual learners, those who learn best by seeing, such as when we give those students a graphic organizer. Then there are the auditory learners, who learn best by hearing. With these students, you can have them listen to the story while it's being read to them. And then we have the kinesthetic learners. They want physical action, like a vocabulary game. Depending on their learning style, the more success they'll have in learning a new language if they are able to use their preferred method.
Although it's hard to prove that personality does or doesn't affect second language learning, it's theorized that different personality styles do have some effect. Four personality traits are listed here. An introvert is somebody who mainly resides within themselves. They're not very outgoing, they may be a little bit reserved and oftentimes quiet. Introverts may be afraid of putting themselves out there, so to speak. An introvert may not be likely to go up to a native speaker of the language that they're learning and attempt conversation. Now, an extrovert, which is somebody who is outgoing and open and oftentimes likes to talk a lot, may be willing to engage in conversation with strangers or even go on a long trip to the country of origin of that language. This would greatly ensure success in second language learning. Another trait listed is anxiety. Anxiety inhibits many and may prevent people from completing ordinary tasks in their day to day lives. In the classroom, anxiety could look like not wanting to raise their hand, not wanting to try new things, and not wanting to give their best effort in case they get things wrong. A major part of language learning is making mistakes and correcting your grammar and misconceptions. For someone with anxiety, this may be extremely difficult or almost impossible. Without practice or willingness to make mistakes, second language learning will be extremely difficult. The last trait listed is inhibitions. Inhibitions are our ability to determine whether a risk is worth taking or not. For example, it's well known that alcohol lowers the inhibitions of an adult, which is why someone may act differently while under the influence rather than when they're sober. In regards to language learning, inhibitions may inhibit somebody from being willing to take a risk and get things wrong. Someone with high inhibitions may feel that learning a new language just isn't worth the risk. Now, Sarah and I are going to do some self reflecting.
In your own personal experience, what factor contributed the most to your success or struggles with learning a second language?
For me, I feel like my environment contributed to my second language learning the most. My dad and grandma speak English and Spanish fluently, so I got a decent amount of exposure to the language at a young age. It also helps that I spent a lot of time in my childhood in Laredo. But once I got older, I was never exposed as much to Spanish because the rest of my family speaks English fluently and that's all we spoke at home. I was also never really enrolled in any type of bilingual education, or I was never taught Spanish directly. Now, when I'm trying to improve my Spanish, I still struggle with getting anywhere further than the basics that I've known all my life. So, what factor do you feel affected the process of language acquisition the most for you?
I would have to say, when it comes to those factors, I feel the most contributing would be opportunity. Because when I had the chance to learn, for example, Spanish in high school, I did pretty well. I enjoyed the class. I was understanding of how and what I was communicating, even so with the writing. Yet I never used it or needed to use it out of school. So unfortunately, now I don't have the same skill and confidence I did before using Spanish. So there was no opportunity, no need to use it.
So, I guess it's time to answer the big question. Is one second language learning factor more significant in a child's success than others? What do you think?
I'm going to have to say absolutely not. Just because every learner is different. You have to consider all the circumstances when someone is trying to learn another language. As educators, we need to consider all the factors: motivation, attitude, intelligence, age, learning styles, and personalities, and how we ourselves fit into that to make those accommodations in the classroom.
I agree. I also feel like they kind of build off of each other as well. Like, for example, intelligence and personality and aptitude and motivation, they're all related based on on different children's personalities and such. So it doesn't really matter if one child is better at learning a second language because of their motivation, but another child might be better at learning a second language because of their aptitude. It just depends on where they're at, who's their teacher, what their environment is, what their background is, and overall, I think it just varies by student.